This is your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Monday, November the 26th. So glad you could join us. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Today was a busy day for the island's law enforcement officers. From as early as 3 o'clock this morning, police were called to the scene of a sudden death on the compound of a supermarket in Kendall Hill, Christchurch. Police said they discovered the body of an adult male, and they subsequently learned that the man was talking to someone when he suddenly collapsed and died. No foul play is suspected. Meanwhile, the body of 34-year-old Ricardo Orlando Rock of Major Walks, Town, St. Peter, was discovered around 9:55 a.m. His body was found in a bathroom of the abandoned Alma Parish School building located at Major Walk, St. Peter. This evening, when Barbados Today visited the family, they declined to speak. Later in the evening, police and emergency officials rushed to the scene of a mass casualty at Connell Town, St. Lucie, involving a ZR van. Several people were reportedly injured in the traffic accident. Investigations are continuing. In other news this Monday, after a 2-week impasse at the Grantley Adams Memorial Secondary School, vendor Jean Mears, affectionately known as Miss B, resumed plying her trade to students today, albeit on the fringes of the school's property. Following talks last Friday, Education Minister Cynthia Bradshaw said Miss B would be allowed to resume selling on the property, while the other vendors would have to seek permission from her ministry. Around 8 o'clock Monday morning, the veteran vendor was seen setting up shop in a central location of the school, as she often would prior to the saga. However, moments later, she was informed by Chairman of the Board, Dr. Jonathan Lewis, and later by Principal Valdez Francis, that she would now have to set up shop by the guard hut at the edge of the school's compound. The vendor was then invited to a brief meeting with the school's administration at around 11 a.m. Both Ms. B and school officials remained tight-lipped about the outcome of the meeting. The island's tourism workers are all set to get a wage increase. The Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association and the Barbados Workers Union have signed a 3-year collective agreement for tourism industry workers. The agreement for wages and other conditions of employment covers the period December 15, 2017 to December 14, 2020, and provides for hotel employees receiving a 2% increase in wages in the first year, 2% in the second, and 1.5% in the third. The signing of the agreement at the BWU's headquarters, Solidarity House, was witnessed by BWU and BHTA representatives as well as industry workers, and was described by the union's Deputy General Secretary and Director of Industry Relations, Dwayne Paul, as the first time in recent history that an agreement between the two parties have been reached so swiftly. He said the deal set a new precedent, having been brokered in less than a year. BHTA Chairman Stephen Austin, in turn, thanked the BWU's negotiating team and stressed that a good relationship between employer and employee is the key towards the development of any industry. Chief Executive Officer of the association, Senator Rudy Grant, also thanked both negotiating teams, saying that the success of the sector largely depends on the partnership of the workers, management, and owners. After 4 years of budget cuts and delays in building a home for its African and Brazilian studies, the University of the West Indies Cayfield campus has joined forces with the University of Johannesburg to launch the Institute for Global African Affairs. Now, through the joint initiative, individuals will be able to earn a master's degree in African studies. The program, which will be taught online and face-to-face, should start in January 2020. Outlining the program during a media launch earlier today at the Cayfield campus, Director of the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation at the UJ, Professor Adekeye Adebajo, said the Joint Institute will focus largely on promoting dialogue and research, especially on the Caribbean.
So with the establishment of our Joint Global Institute, the Institute for Pan-African Thought will continue its research and policy development work focused on Africa and its diaspora, particularly the US, while the Joint Institute for Global African Affairs will focus largely on the envisaged Global African Studies Masters, which is kind of like the crown jewel in the whole project, and also seek to promote dialogue and research specifically focused on the Caribbean.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Welcome back with news from the region. Now in Jamaica, President of the People's National Party, Dr. Peter Phillips, is blasting the ruling Jamaica Labour Party for failing to address pressing issues facing some groups in the country, including the island's marijuana farmers.
It's a meet and interact session with students at the University of the West Indies, where the PNP is trying to sell what it dubs as its covenant. Commitment, pledges or promises that the party claims will be implemented should it be returned to power. PNP President Dr. Peter Phillips is the man leading the charge. Here he takes time to support the Stop Violence Against Women campaign.
It is clear that this is a problem in our country as well as in the wider world.
Then it was off to the session for the main selling point. According to the opposition, inequality is rife in society, and although there has been growth, poverty and underdevelopment is the reality for the vast majority. As part of the solution, the ganja industry was presented as a beacon of hope.
Any plan or any party proposal that does not include how we are going to deal with ganja is to me no plan. Why? Because this is the only product that if we produce and sell at a pound, we can make 200,000 versus if we produce and sell a pound of ginger or a pound of tomatoes.
And on the international scene, President Donald Trump called Mexico to send Central American migrants seeking asylum in the United States back to their home countries a day after U.S. authorities shut the country's busiest border crossing and fired tear gas into a crowd there. We have an update from the Reuters television.
The most heavily trafficked border crossing in the Western Hemisphere reopened between San Diego and Tijuana after it was closed amid clashes and chaos. U.S. officials fired tear gas canisters into Mexico when a group of protesters and asylum seekers approached the border on Sunday. A Reuters photographer snapping these images, appearing to show a woman trying to rush 2 children to safety. The clashes erupted after rising tensions in the area. Thousands of Central American migrants who fled crime and economic conditions have camped out in Tijuana and for days staged demonstrations asking permission to work or seek safety in the U.S. Hundreds of migrants, including women and children, protested peacefully on Sunday, chanting, "We aren't criminals, we are hard workers." On Sunday, Mexican police broke up one such demonstration, and about 500 migrants rushed toward the U.S. border. Images shared on social media show clouds of tear gas blanketing the protesters, U.S. helicopters circling overhead, and Mexican riot police eventually containing the demonstration.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper email updates or like us on Facebook and sign up for breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. Now you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic evening.